It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Welcome to the Hockey Writers Grindline. I am your interim host, Devin Little, filling in for Patrick Brown, who is once again on Coyotes duty for the night. And my other line mate, Kyle Nupp, is on coaching duty. So here I am, flying solo. Don't you worry, though, because we've still got a great show planned for you tonight. But let's first start off by introducing our guest for tonight's episode. First off, making his second appearance on our show. And apparently he can only show up when Pat and Kyle aren't here. We'll have to figure that out in the future. Brian Oldani. How's it going, Brian?
It's going great. Just got home from vacation, so, you know.
Hey, yeah, that's what that glow is. That makes sense. All right, good to have you, Brian. Up next, we have a fan favorite that we haven't had the opportunity to chat with in quite some time. So please join me in welcoming managing editor of Access Hockey MI, Rachel Anderson. Rachel, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I am doing well, if you could not tell. Happy to have you on, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And now, before we begin our show here, I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsor for tonight's show, the Hockey Writers coverage for the 2022 Winter Olympics. They'll be bringing you 3 solid weeks of wall-to-wall coverage of both the women's and men's Olympic tournaments. They're bringing you roster and player analysis, game previews, recaps, commentary, and more. If you're watching Olympic hockey, you need to be following the Hockey Writers. You'll find a link down in the description below. And while you're down there, why don't you drop us a like and give these two fine individuals a follow as well. Thank you. And we hope you enjoy our show. So, you know how we begin this show. We always begin the show this way. It's time for one good and one bad. Now, obviously, as far as the Red Wings are concerned, we had kind of a light week. We just had the one game against Philadelphia, a 6-3 win. And then prior to, or I guess following our last show and in between, there was a big event in Las Vegas that you may or may not have tuned into. Maybe we'll touch on that. So for me personally, I'll skip mine out of the way real quick. My good is Moritz Seider's play in Philadelphia. There's that shift where he killed like half the penalty himself, and it kind of gave me flashbacks to 2008 and Zetterberg's Conn Smythe shift, as they like to call it. And then my bad is just to kind of do an overview here. Just the entire All-Star weekend. I know we were talking before, Brian, but yeah, I'm gonna steal this from you. I do like the skills competition. I still do, and I do think that there's a lot of entertainment value out of that. And I did enjoy watching some of those events. It was a real shame to watch Larkin not defend his title, but oh well. But overall, the All-Star game's just meh for me, and this year didn't move the needle for me. Brian, I want to pass it over to you first. What were your one good, one bad from the week?
Yeah, eerily similar. So I'll start with good. So in my eyes, that shift, as you mentioned, Zetterberg's Conn Smythe shift. I mean, that shift was kind of like Seider taking the reins of the Calder Cup. I mean, got the flashy play of Zegras. I mean, he was even at the All-Star break. But I mean, a one-man penalty kill, bring it in the zone, take a hit, come out with it, take it out of the zone, skate around, makes a pass. The guy killed 40 seconds by himself. And not to mention he had 2 assists that game. Yep. I mean, that's just an outstanding game. Yeah, just an outstanding game. Ho hum, you know, doing his thing, being
just another day's work.
And a big hit. Like, let's not forget about that. But one bad is a little more focused than yours, Devin, on the All-Star break. It's more so not giving Zegras the breakaway challenge goal in first place.
Yeah, that was brutal.
You watch that and you see him go dressed in the average Joe's LaFleur jersey and everything, blindfolded, scores the goal. You're thinking, wow, what a move. What a breakaway challenge. And then you see Pietrangelo come out. Yeah, I mean, I guess the first move was just kind of like a joke, you know, it's bring out the marching band. then he doesn't even score on the second one. I mean, the goalies are trying to let you score here, and he still wins it. Seems like hometown favorite won that for no reason. That's just bad by the NHL in general.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Rachel, tossing it over to you now. What were your one good and one bad from the week?
My one good kind of piggybacks off of what you guys were saying about Seider, except I think the game as a whole. It was a big game for the Wings. First win in regulation, in regular season against Philly since 97. So it's kind of a big deal that we got that. And it's kind of sad it's taken this long, but I'm happy for them. That was a big hump to overcome there for us. But my one bad, it's kind of a compilation. It would be the tough luck in Arizona with the Coyotes having to switch arenas due to their long-standing issues financially, and the overall handling of that. And then, all the drama going on in Chicago. It seems like those two teams have been struggling the last couple of seasons, and it's just one bad thing after another coming out of there. So it's definitely bringing the whole vibe down, I think.
Yeah, I think Chicago's doing Arizona real solid by not having Arizona take all of the negative press this year. So
right, they're trying to help out, right?
Yeah.
I've heard some Chicago fans are trying to jump ship and come to Detroit.
Real hockey town.
Yes, absolutely. They go to a fan base who knows what a rebuild actually looks like. Shots fired. All right. On that note, let us pivot to our next topic. And we had just mentioned the Red Wings are going through a real rebuild. Wow.
That's 10 times fast.
Yeah. How now, brown cow? But and in the process of the rebuild, it's not just about adding young players to the team, and we saw that this past offseason where the team acquired Nick Leddy, and they added Pius Suter, who, mind you, he's 25 or 25, 26, so he's not like he's it's not like he's old by any means, but he's not a rookie. And those two were very much substantial additions to this team. So I want to know, from your guys' perspective, how have you viewed the new guys and their performance this year for the Red Wings? And I want to start with you on this one, Brian.
So Leddy, I think he's kind of as advertised. Might not be producing as many points as we might have expected, but I mean, did we expect to be in this position in the standings, or at least this close coming down the stretch? So, I mean, things change, and I think he's been fine defensively, not outstanding, but that's kind of like as advertised. I mean, he's 30, he is what he is type of thing. You're not going to get a player and he's going to take a huge step and get to, kind of like elite level, especially a guy like Leddy. And we brought him on as a trade piece. So I think that's still an option, and it's there. And I think any playoff contender could use him on like a third line type of situation. Suter, on the other hand, throw back to the Blackhawks in a real struggle. Can't believe they just let him go. I mean, he was a rookie last year playing on Kane's line, so probably a little more help than this season, which is why his point production was probably slightly higher last year than this year. But he's still he's playing well. Great second line center for us to actually, be relevant past the first line. These past couple of years, it's been all right, first line, and then let's try to not get scored on type of situation. And he at least brings a little juice, especially with the addition of Bertuzzi going down and Fabry being there. And as you said, he's only 25. He should be getting slightly better throughout the next couple of years. Like, this shouldn't be his ceiling. So I think he's been a better addition than Leddy, but I don't think Leddy's been bad by any means.
For sure. And I do want to mention, you mentioned that playing with Kane last year gave him kind of a slight boost. It really is a slight boost. He's more or less on his scoring pace from last season. And like you said, he's not playing with Patrick Kane this year. He's playing with Robbie Fabry. That's a bit of a.
They're not the same player.
No, I believe it or not. Yeah, I wouldn't do that trade 1-for-1 if I was Chicago. And real quick before I toss it over to Rachel here, I do want to throw out some stats here. Leddy has 12 points in 44 games, while he's averaging just a little over 21 minutes a game in ice time. So he's not producing offensively a ton, but he is being relied on to play some big minutes. And then Suter has 22 points in 48 games while playing just under 17 minutes. I think that kind of just fits into, the second line role, like you mentioned there, Brian. All right, now tossing it over to you, Rachel. How do you assess the new guys and their play for Detroit this season?
Yeah, I think Brian summed it up really well. As far as Leddy goes, he is definitely as advertised. I think he was brought on to kind of be that veteran alongside our younger D as they come up and just really be kind of a foundational piece. He wasn't expected to be super offensive, so he's positional. He's doing what he's supposed to do, and some guys, that's just kind of their niche. They're not offensive minded. And that's just the game that they have. And I think Leddy's done a great job of just kind of fitting in with the team and really being kind of that foundational piece for the young guys. Suter, I would say he's not exceeding expectations at all. I think he's also right along with what we expected. But what I've really liked from him is that the transition to the wings and having actually a pretty highly competitive team right now with so many young prospects right at the door and already there, he's pushing as if he's one of those, and he's one of those drafted kids that's fighting for the spot, and he's got a fair chance of remaining for some time, I think. But I really like the competitiveness I see from him every shift. He pushes really hard. He takes a lot of opportunities and chances when he gets them. So I think they're both really good additions. Long term, I don't really see, Leddy sticking around for too long, just as the team's dynamic changes and more D come available. But I think both of them have been really good acquisitions for us.
Yeah, for sure. I think you both have kind of just laid out the facts there. I can't really add too much more on there. I do think that for this team to be competitive, or at least to have playoff aspirations, I do think Suter has to be a third line center. I don't think that he is a second line center on a playoff team. But for where the Red Wings are right now, I think he's in a good spot, and he's contributing to why the Red Wings are better this season than they have been in seasons prior. So that's just my piece for that. Now,
that was a good piece.
Yeah, thank you. I only serve up the best. Now, if you recall the Red Wings off-season moves, there was one other guy that the Red Wings went out and got besides Suter and Leddy, and this guy was the one that most people talked about. Suter was exciting, Leddy was exciting for different reasons, but everybody and their mother was excited to see what Alex Nedeljkovic was going to bring to the Red Wings once they acquired him from the Carolina Hurricanes. Well, we're past the halfway mark of the season, and I think the overall consensus is that we're pretty pleased with what Ned's brought to Detroit and the crease. However, and Brian, you kind of alluded to this on your last appearance. We kind of had a little brief back and forth about this. Ned's been overworked, or at least he's kind of been the guy in the crease to the point where no one else is playing. Calvin Pickard played that one game a couple weeks ago. Greiss has been playing here or there. Since November 1st, Nedeljkovic has played all but 9 games. That's a lot of games. That's not a lot of rest. Mm-hmm. So my question for both of you is, A, is Alex Nedeljkovic getting overworked at this point? And B, is Greiss becoming a problem? And by a problem, I mean, he's fighting COVID right now, or at least he's returning from the COVID protocol. But even when he has played, he hasn't really, stole the show. There's a reason why they keep going back to Nedeljkovic. So Rachel, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Ooh, okay. I'm just gonna put it out there. I don't think Ned is getting overworked necessarily. Kind of flash back to, the game has been different for the last decade or so with how we handle goaltending with the tandem style play that we've seen. It was never like that before. Now, it's not to say that having, your starting goaltender in a second string is always the best way to do it. But I think if Ned can handle it mentally and his game is not suffering for it and the team is not suffering for it, I would continue putting him in. Now, if it's something where it's very evident that he's getting exhausted, his mental fortitude is just not there, and he's making mistakes that he typically wouldn't, then that's a good indication that he is getting overworked. But I think at this point, he seems confident. He seems like he has his game together. He hasn't necessarily lost control. He's still maintaining a .918 save percentage, which is really good. So I think being overworked might not necessarily be the correct way to phrase it. I wouldn't oppose him being the primary goaltender, going forward. If the team can depend on their goaltender That's critical. So if he's the guy that's going to do that, let him continue to do that as the team continues to fight up front. Now with Greiss, again, I wouldn't say he's a problem. If he needs the ice time to continue to sharpen his edges, to use a lame phrase, it's a hockey podcast after all. It might be worth putting him in. But then again, if he's not going to be the starter, if he's not going to be the dependent on guy, maybe it is his time just to kind of sit back and be, okay, this is my job to lose. And if he doesn't force the issue, then he's going to continue being a bench warmer once he gets off protocol. So he's got a ton of skill though too, but I think he's still dependable if we need him. But right now I think Ned's the guy getting the hat tip to him just because he's been consistent and hasn't shown really much exhaustion so far this season.
Yeah, I do think you bring up kind of a good point there too. I think we can all agree here that Greiss isn't in the long-term picture for this team. Mm-hmm. He's 36, even just his age, it's just not going to work out. So there's kind of a consideration where you got to think, shouldn't we just ride Ned as long as he can go? Because he is, he has a future with this team. So what, how much do you want to invest in the guy that, isn't going to be here for too much longer? Brian, I want to get your thoughts on this topic. Do you think that Alex Nedeljkovic has been a bit overworked this season? And then do you think that Thomas Greiss is becoming a problem in the backup slot?
So as you stated before, I did kind of bring this up last time I was on the grind line. And I think my answers are slightly changed. Rachel brought up a great point about the mental game. I think I said last time that he could be getting burnt out. And we saw that right before the All-Star break. He had a stretch of 2 really bad games and then a really bad first period and got yanked. And then we saw Pickard finish the Blackhawks game and then play the Pittsburgh game. So It felt like he might be getting burnt out. But as Rachel said, I think he has the confidence. I think he's only 26, right? He can play these minutes. He can be an every night goalie pretty much. But I think mentally, Rachel brings up a great point where he could be getting burnt out mentally in the sense that, even coming off of this break, he let up 3 goals real quick, or 2 goals real quick on like 8 shots. And he had a huge break. He clearly isn't exhausted, but like mentally, he might just be losing a little bit because he's just playing so much, even coming off the break. I guess it's kind of a little weird, and then Greiss, it'd be nice to have a backup goalie that you could cycle in there in stages that our goalie does look a little shaken and not playing to the best of his ability. Just throw in a backup goalie and be completely confident with it. But Greiss has a sub-9 save percentage and an over 3.3 goals against. That's not somebody you can rely on. And I agree. I say we roll with Ned, even though it would be nice to have a reliable backup to be brought into the game, especially with where the NHL is going with the tandem goalie.
I think for my part, and I'm sure we will talk about this down the road, but I think what the Red Wings do to address the backup role in the offseason is going to be interesting because there's not like a ton of great names out there, but there are some names to keep an eye on. Mm-hmm. All right, just a quick reset here. Let's pay some bills, as my line mate likes to say. Just a quick reminder that this week's show is being brought to you by the Hockey Writers 2022 Winter Olympics coverage. If you're going to be cheering on former Red Wings legends like Tomas Jurko, Ryan Sproul, and Matthias Brome at the Olympics, you might as well be following along with our coverage over at the Hockey Writers. Thank you, and be sure to check that out. All right, now let's talk about the other additions that were made to this lineup in the offseason, or I guess training camp, whenever you want to say they were added. That would be the rookies. That would be Moritz, Seider, and that would be Lucas Raymond. Now, at this point, Hockey Town's in love with these two. They kind of go hand in hand. There's that viral video of them clapping at the same time. They're 2 peas in a pod at this point. But unfortunately, only one of them could win the Calder Trophy. They don't get to share it, and Trevor Zegras might even win it instead. But we're not going to talk about him right now. So I want to know, for you and your two's opinion, or both of your opinion, who would get your vote to win the Calder Trophy? And for me, real quick, I know this is kind of surprising because if you watch the show, you know my stick, but I'm going to say Moritz Seider. I think it's kind of a cliche, but it's really hard to be an effective defender at such a young age. But he is. We just talked about what he did against Philadelphia with that penalty kill shift. He does stuff like that on a daily basis. He rarely has an off game, and when he does, he comes back and has a really good game. He is easily the Red Wings' best defenseman, and I would venture to say that he's the biggest reason why the Red Wings are at 500 this year. He's the biggest piece that they've added. Now, Brian, I want to get your thoughts on this. If you had a vote for the Calder Trophy, who you saying wins it, Lucas or Moritz?
So I'm gonna roll with you, Devin. I think it's Seider. I don't think it's much of a question. I mean, the guy puts up a ton of points, and you just wrote an article about Lindstrom talking about how like even Norris trophies now go towards offensive defensemen just because of what they bring to the game. And I mean, he shows as a 20-year-old that he jumps into play, he makes plays, and he's a sound defenseman, lays guys out. I mean, this guy has it all. And he's also, I feel like not enough people mention, guys playing alongside Danny DeKeyser. Like that and alone should get you some bonus points. I mean, he's dragging Danny around all ice, and they're putting up points while he's doing that. So I think, and Raymond, that's nothing to take away from Raymond's season. He's having an outstanding season in his own. Even when he slowed down with goal production, he was still getting assists almost nightly. But still, I think it's Seider because of the sound defenseman, the great offense, and dragging Danny DeKeyser around.
It's a sound argument if I could ever make one, Brian. Good stuff. Rachel, now it's time for you to cast your vote. Who are you voting to win the Calder, Raymond or Seider?
First, I think whoever wins, you should get a tattoo of their face on your neck.
I agree.
That would be awesome. I'll get the other one. So I'm gonna say Raymond.
Love it. I love it.
Not just to do something different, but I think exactly. I think for these two, it's like choosing your favorite child, and I would never want to be in that position. So I'm glad I can't vote. But I think with Raymond, what is the coolest thing about him to me is that there was literally zero transition period. Seider had a season in the AHL. He went back to Europe and continued to play during the silly season, as Janae and I put it. But Raymond didn't. So he went right from the SHL right to Detroit. He's good to go, producing, skating with some of the top guys in the league. And I think, Seider's fantastic. I love the kid. I'm all about it. But I think Raymond has just kind of stolen my heart in that way because there was literally no development necessary for him. He just kind of jumped right in there. So.
Listen, I'm not going to debate you. I'm Lucas Raymond winning the Calder. I'm all about that. So
you're about the tattoo too?
We'll discuss
think that's
that.
What he just said.
Yeah. We'll discuss that later.
That's what I heard.
No, in all seriousness, though, I think the big takeaway from this topic is that either of them are a deserving candidate. And it's awesome that in this season alone, the Red Wings have two bona fide Calder Trophy worthy players on their team. So if you're not excited about the Red Wings this season, I don't know what to do to get you excited because this is as good as it gets. All right. Now, Brian, I appreciate your foreshadowing of what was to come with this next topic, mentioning my article. I want to talk about Gustav Lindstrom because nobody really is. And yet this dude quietly is possibly the Red Wings' second best defenseman. He just kind of takes care of business, doesn't do much. He only has 9 points on the season, but he leads all Red Wings defensemen with a +2 rating. And don't even get me started. I already know what you're going to say. Plus-minus stat is a little crazy. It's not the best stat to judge. But when you're on a team that is -29 altogether, and you're +2, yeah, that's pretty good. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts on Lindstrom's play this year and what your overall thoughts are on him. Rachel, I would like to start with you on this topic. What are your thoughts on Lindstrom's play this year?
I'm gonna be honest. I was hoping you would start with me.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's because I'm excited. So Lindstrom he's been one of those defensemen that I've had the privilege of watching for several seasons, and with
That's
him,
why I started with you.
exactly. Thank you. And we actually just this season, at the start of the season, we talked about him on our YouTube video cast, talking about just how he is a quiet developer. He gets out there, he's very composed, he knows his role, he's going to do his work, and he's not flashy, which I think is something a reason people aren't watching him specifically, because comparatively to Seider is flash and he's trashing people all over the ice. Lindy is not like that. He's always been very mature, and he knows exactly where to place the puck, how to place the puck, and how to control himself and his emotions as well. And that's something that has overflowed into his play this season specifically. And that's one of the things that I've loved watching develop about him. So, I think he's a fantastic defenseman, and I think he is a long-term piece in the overall Detroit picture, especially with defensemen. Coming through the pipeline with prospects, we have a ton of good ones coming up. And I think they would all match really well with him, and they'd balance each other. So I think, he'll easily be on the team. Dare I say it, 5-6 seasons, maybe more.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I mean, I've been wrong before, so don't quote me on that. But I mean, he's getting like 17 plus minutes a night, and
Yep.
and he's producing with it. He's making the most of his time. It might not be points, but it's the small things that count and the small things that make plays happen. And he's excellent when it comes to doing that.
Absolutely. No arguments here. Brian, want to turn over to you now. What are your thoughts on Lindstrom's play, and just overall, what do you think of him?
Yeah, so I don't really have too much to add. I think it gets lost. I mean, getting back to your article about how Norris Trophy awards go to offensive defensemen, and that's what you come to expect. And this guy does his job. You don't hear his name. You might get a stat, once every 4 or 5 games, and Apple here. You might even. I think we're still waiting for his first NHL goal, for that matter. But he does the right thing, as Rachel mentioned. Little things go unnoticed, and he's out there making the right play, making the right passes, not making mistakes, and just getting the puck out of the zone. I think that is the number one key, is just getting the puck out of the zone, out of the danger zone. And he does a great job of doing that.
Well, it's not a shameless plug if Brian's doing it for me, right? You should, for my part, you should go check out my article over at thehockeywriters.com. It's pretty decent. So thanks for that plug, Brian.
No, don't worry. He told me to do
it. You're not supposed to say that on the air. Gosh. Anyways, let's get to our final topic. And, we have Rachel here, so I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the kids. What's happening on the farm? It's Prospect Watch 2022.
Yay.
I want to know from both of you, 1, maybe 2 prospects that have caught your eye this season. And Rachel, I'm not going to start with you. Brian, I'm going to start with you.
Jerk move. I was so excited.
Brian, please share with me 1 or 2 prospects that have caught your eye this season.
If he takes time, we're fighting.
Yeah, don't worry, Rachel. I don't think I'm going to take it, because I'm actually throwing a little bit of curveball here. It's actually a prospect that's caught my eye, and not the best way, per se. Looking back at this last draft, I mean, when we traded up for that second first-round pick, you knew we were taking a goalie.
Okay.
I personally thought it was about to be Wallstead. Turns out we took Kosa. And, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I'm trusting the Iser plan, But he's 6'6", so, like, that's an NHL goalkeeper. But, I mean, Wallstead 6'3", that's by no means small. And I feel like just
6 foot. So
yeah, exactly. Jimmy Howard, Chris Osgood.
Yep.
We've had some great small goalies, but just overall, I mean, I think Wallstead is playing a little better this year. Obviously, he's just got slightly better stats. But I think the real takeaway was throwing it back to the World Juniors that got canceled. But I mean, Kosa couldn't even play. He was the 3rd goalie on Team Canada. And we took this guy with the 15th pick. And again, no hate to Yzerman. I love that guy. And I hope that Costa is the franchise goalie. And I'm dead wrong eating these words. But I look back at it right now. I'd probably take Wallstead. I would have taken him at the time too. So maybe just things haven't changed for me like I wanted them to. So I guess caught my eye in a slightly bad way is a better way to put it.
Sure thing. I know for my part, recently I put out a new prospect rankings for the Red Wings. And I knew when I finished the prior one, I was kind of anticipating Costa to climb the ladder a little bit the next time around. I had him staying put. He's exactly where he was last time because of what you're talking about, Brian. He hasn't really I think at best you could say he's stagnated this year, and that's not what you want to see from a goalie you take 15th overall. But the book is not out on him yet. It's not time to jump ship. We'll see what happens between now and then. Now and when he is ready to go for the NHL, I should say. All right, Rachel, I kept you waiting long enough. I am eager to hear who these prospects that have caught your eye are. So please do share.
Okay, so I will say in Costa's defense, goalies are tough. Goalie development is very, very, very difficult. But yes, he has stagnated a little bit. The top prospect that I have been really excited to watch, and this is going to come as no surprise, is Jonathan Berggren. Yeah, fancy feet himself. Like that kid is just absolutely tearing up the AHL right now.
Matt just got a tingly feeling and he doesn't know why.
Well, and Berggren, I mean, he's a small guy too. He's not this giant of a kid. And the cool thing about him is just the tenacity that he plays with. He literally just dives head first into everything and always comes out with the puck. He makes incredibly skilled puck handling moves, overtime goals. He comes in clutch all the time. And even in his first game, I mean, I want to say he had like 6 or 7 shots in his rookie game in the AHL, which, I mean, that's a pretty big deal when you're not on the top line or anything like that. So I would say he has been the most exciting, at least on the AHL level for me to watch. Another one that I think is slightly underrated right now in the defensive world is Donovan Sebrango. I did a prospect analysis on both of these guys earlier this season, and Sebrango from season to season has shown dramatic improvement. I think he's been really cool to watch and very steady growth. So I'm very optimistic that even next season you're going to see even more growth from him. He's making better plays as far as passing goes. He's a lot more calm on the ice. He's controlling the time and space he's got much better. And he's getting kind of gritty too, which is really good to see out of him. So those two guys, I mean, Berggren, I'm not sure is going to remain in the AHL for very long. I don't think he's going to stick around much longer. So I'm trying not to get too attached to seeing him play. They all get taken from me. We can't have nice things. So I think
at some point that's what you want though, right?
It's true. It's the hard part of it, just like seeing Veleno go away again. And he was only back for 2 games, But those two guys are just they've been some of the most fun to watch. And I think with Sebrango's case, he's such an unassuming kid, and he's just such a nice, quiet, calm kid. But when he gets on the ice, he's all business. And I love to see that out of someone so young. So those two dudes, they're people to look out for. They're going to be a big deal, I think.
Yeah, I know from my part, as disappointing as Cosa's World Junior experience was, I think just
sounds like a bad band name.
Yeah.
World Junior experience.
But yeah, just the fact that Sebrango made Team Canada, and not just as like an extra dude, he was like playing. I thought that was really impressive. I don't know that we would have predicted that on draft day. So he's one of those kids that just keeps climbing. So I'm glad that you mentioned him. Mm-hmm. And as for me, if you want to know who's catching my eye, just read my prospect rankings. I mentioned them. Brian did a
shameless plug
for me. Shameless plug for me earlier. Now this is my shameless plug for me right now. So go read those prospect rankings. All right. Thank you to both of you for joining me and talking some Red Wings. That is our show. Again, thank you both for talking the Red Wings with me tonight. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our coverage for all things Olympic hockey over at thehockeywriters.com. And of course, be sure to check out all of our Red Wings coverage over at thehockeywriters.com as well. For Brian and for Rachel, I am Devin Little signing off.